What's up, everybody? Welcome into Four Verts. My name is Harrison Graham. Early games done, and not sure there was a bigger loser than the Giants, even though they won. They blow the number one pick, beat the Colts 45-33, 5 total touchdowns for Drew Lock. For the second straight week, a team in the driver's seat to get the number one pick wins a game. Last week it was the Raiders, who won again today, by the way. This week, it's the Giants, who now sit in the number 3 slot. If the Browns were to lose to the Dolphins, that game just getting going, they would fall to the number 4 pick. Look, it's always conflicting when you talk about tanking because players don't tank, coaches don't tank. But if you're a fan of these teams and you get late in the season and you know you need a quarterback, I don't have a problem if you root for the tank. Now, if it's week 10, let's get a grip a little bit. But week 16, week 17, week 18, I understand wanting your team to lose. And just from a neutral perspective, that's a brutal win for the Giants. And by the way, it's a brutal loss for the Colts, who, yes, Anthony Richardson was out, but let's not act like he's been lighting it up. I mean, Gus Bradley, the Colts defensive coordinator, should be fired immediately. You get 33 points out of Joe Flacco and give up 45? That just can't happen. The Giants haven't scored 30 points in a game this season, and they scored 45 today. Absolutely incredible. Does anyone want the number one pick? The draft order right now, Patriots number one pick. They have Drake May, so if they end up with that pick, they play the Bills next week. Even if the Bills sit their starters, good chance Patriots lose that game. I bet they would do what the Bears did a couple years ago, trade that number one pick for a QB-needy team, try to get some capital back. Titans sit number 2. All of a sudden, I think we got to start talking about Tennessee as a serious team to draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. Giants still sitting there at 3, could fall to 4, like I said, depending on what happens with Cleveland, as they're 3-12, sitting with the 4th pick. Jags, after beating the Titans, have the 5th pick. Jets have the 6th pick. Panthers 7, Raiders 8, Bears 9, Saints 10. That wraps up your top 10, all with 3 to 5 wins. Saints at 5 wins. Patriots, Titans, Giants, and Browns at 3 wins. Jags, Jets, Panthers, Raiders, and Bears at 4 wins. So a lot of teams in there. Very crowded. We'll see what happens next week. But man, that's tough for the Giants. A day after Shedeur Sanders wears Giants-themed cleats, they fall out of the number one pick. So going to be interesting to see where this all ends up. Staying in New York, or New Jersey, I should say, Garrett Wilson, is he going to request a trade? Ian Rapoport said this morning that if the Jets bring back Aaron Rodgers in 2025, more on him in a second, that Garrett Wilson could request a trade. I guess Wilson and him do not get along. I know Wilson a few weeks ago was asked, do you want to be a Jet moving forward? He literally said, I don't know. I don't know. Something's off there. I'll say this. If you're the Jets and Wilson's camp makes it clear that he wants out if they bring Rodgers back, you got to move on from Rodgers. He was absolutely horrendous today. Threw a couple picks. Actually had a late hit penalty out of bounds, which was kind of funny. I know he's been playing better recently, but that is just not a solution. I understand that there may not be a clear-cut better option for next year, but I'd rather keep my young star receiver than latch on to Aaron Rodgers for one more season when he gives you no chance to be successful at the highest level. Normally, if I'm a team, I would not let a young player like this dictate that term. But in this case, Aaron Rodgers is not your future. Garrett Wilson has a chance to be a part of your future. If it's Wilson or Rodgers, that's a pretty easy decision if I'm New York. Cut Aaron, let him go play somewhere else for his final season or two, or maybe he just retires. Who knows? But that would be the route I would go if I was the Jets. We'll see what plays out there. Garrett Wilson, ironically, after they were trailing 40-0, had a touchdown catch from Tyrod Taylor when they went to the bullpen. All right, some news heading into Week 18 as this impacts the AFC Playoff Picture. Carson Wentz in line to get the start for the Chiefs as they play the Broncos next week. Reports from Jay Glazer, Peter Schrager, and others that the Chiefs are going to rest key starters, I would assume, in addition to Patrick Mahomes. That means Travis Kelce, I'm trying to think of some other aging, like Chris Jones, who's already banged up. He wouldn't play even if he was healthy. Trent McDuffie, I would imagine 10 to 15 guys are in street clothes. Obviously, you can't do too many because you still have to suit up a roster for game day. But Carson Wentz gets an opportunity to put up some good tape out there. More importantly, though, is the Broncos in the AFC playoff picture. If they win or tie, they get the final playoff spot. And if you're the Chiefs, we talked about this on yesterday's show, you don't want the Bengals slithering their way in there. And by the way, with the Colts losing, Cincinnati now leapfrogs them in terms of teams who have a chance to get that final playoff spot. The Colts are out. So I think that if you're the Chiefs, you're not going to intentionally lose. Again, players, coaches don't tank. But if you sit enough key starters and the Broncos obviously are going to play to win, chances are you probably will lose this game, which would knock Cincinnati out. Denver would get the final playoff spot, and the Chiefs have already clinched home field throughout. So I think that's probably what happens here. Now, if somehow Carson Wentz balls out and they win this game, that would leave the door open for Cincinnati and potentially Miami. Miami needs to win today. No Tua Tagovailoa. They're playing the Browns. Tyler Huntley getting the start there. So we'll see if they can win in a battle of backup quarterbacks. But doesn't sound like the Chiefs are going to risk anything next week in terms of playing their key guys. And why should they? There's no reason. And the extra benefit is you don't want to play the red-hot Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow, who have given you trouble in the past. Hit that subscribe button here on 4Verts. More NFL content on a daily basis. The latest news, rumors, game reaction, and a whole lot more. We'll probably have a video tonight as well because we got Packers, Vikings getting going here. Then you got Sunday Night Football tonight. Falcons, Commanders, big playoff implications there. Bucks won earlier, so Atlanta needs to win to stay on top of the NFC South. Also, Washington can clinch a playoff spot with a win. So a lot on the line there tonight as that game takes place. So rock and roll with us here on 4Verts. We got you covered for all of it. Saquon Barkley hit 2,000 rushing yards today. Sits at 2,005. Ninth player in NFL history to reach that metric. First since Derrick Henry did it in 2020. Interesting decision coming for the Eagles as he is exactly 100 yards behind Eric Dickerson's record. Dickerson is on record saying he does not want that number to be topped. He's also made it clear, like, hey, I did it in 16 games. I think it was 16, yeah. It definitely wasn't 17. I can't remember if they jumped from 14 to 16 then. I think they had, but either way, he wants to maintain that record. The Eagles are locked in as the number 2 seed unless the Lions lose on Monday and the Vikings lose this afternoon. If both those things happen, Philly could have a chance at the 1 seed, but assuming at least one of those teams win, they would be locked into the 2 seed. So we'll see what they do. Do they sit Saquon? Does he want to push for this record? I would imagine that's some kind of team decision there. But I'd like to see him chase it. I think it'd be cool. But he has hit the 2,000-yard metric, so maybe they're satisfied with that, as that is an exclusive list as well. All right, some other just reaction from the early window here. Tell you what, I don't know who it's going to be, but I think somebody's going to hire Liam Cohen to be their next head coach. Maybe he's an option for the Bears if they don't get Ben Johnson. Their offensive coordinator, I mean, they just absolutely cook every single week, it seems like. 48 points today. I get Carolina's breath. They're lacking in some talent on defense, but Baker Mayfield's having a huge year. They run the ball well with Bucky Irving and Rashad White. They looked fantastic. What else happened here? The Saints, I think, are in a very interesting spot heading into this offseason because they're not going to be picking high enough to get Cam Ward or Shador Sanders, but they don't have their quarterback for the future, and they're also in cap hell. I don't know what their approach is going to be because obviously they got to get a new head coach first and then go from there, but I don't see an avenue for them to be competing next season. So do you just kind of take it on the chin next year, eat some of these bad contracts for a year, and then in 2026 you draft a quarterback and reset your roster then? I kind of wonder if that's the path they take. What do the Raiders do? They've won 2 in a row now. Like I said, they're, I think, seventh or eighth in the draft order. Eighth. I mean, they're far away from getting one of those quarterbacks probably now. So What happens there? Is Aiden O'Connell back to start next year? Do they sign a bridge guy? Do they go in all in on Sam Darnold? I know my guy Mitchell Renz at Chat Sports talked about a possibility of trading for J.J. McCarthy. If Sam Darnold leads the Vikings on a big playoff run, do the Vikings open the door to a J.J. trade? I mean, there's going to be some interesting QB maneuvering this offseason, like who gets what, because most people think Shador Sanders and Cam Ward will go in the top 10, but there's probably not a third guy that's going to go high. I mean, Jalen Milrow, maybe he goes in the first round, but I don't think a team's going to reach for him super early. So, the markets for the Sam Darnolds of the world, potentially J.J. McCarthy. Does Justin Fields land a starting job next year somewhere just as a bridge guy? We'll see. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how it plays out. Does Tennessee draft a quarterback? I think that's very much on the table. So even though a lot of these early games were blowouts and uninteresting, they had big implications in a couple cases for the playoffs, but more importantly for the draft and for the offseason, which is going to be very interesting to follow. We, of course, will cover it all here on 4 Verts. My name is Harrison Graham. We'll probably be back tonight after Sunday Night Football, so lock us in for that. Until then, enjoy the rest of your football Sunday.